Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show, the first episode of the show. If that, I appreciate you so much for taking the time to tune in. Your support means a lot. Quick note, so again, this is the first episode, so I apologize if it comes out a little rough, but essentially the concept of this show is just we're going to be talking about a different topic each episode, try to have on some guest or two, try to really try to just get to the bottom line of it all, hence the name, Bottom Line Podcast. Shout out to Bob Davis for that one. So with that being said, let's get started. Thing I want to talk about this episode is something that's been bugging me. I'm pretty sure that you all have come across it at some point or another, and that's just people on social media. And when I say people on social media, let me be clear. I'm talking about like a over reliance living on social media. I'm talking about those people that you know can't do without it, that are on it all day, posting all day, commenting on people's statuses and stuff all day. It's like it's their virtual livelihood. It's their not even virtual. It's their livelihood. And that's the people I'm really talking about. And one thing about me is you're never going to hear me talk about a subject without discussing kind of both sides of it. I do. I don't believe in criticizing or talking about something without understanding that other half of it. And so, what drives that? People to be on the social media that much. Well, I think it's this concept called the third place. And so what that is first, humans, we all desire some sort of place of community, um, relaxation, entertainment, something like that outside of just work and home. Like, and for examples of that third place, it could be, going you people that go to the gym and that's their relaxation, that's their place to kind of de-stress. It could be, people, if you like sports, you go play basketball, you go to the golf course, something like that. If you like movies, you go to the movies. You like shopping, you go to the mall or online shop. Well, online shopping is more back to this topic, but it's in the TV shows it was the coffee shops or the bar that everybody would always come to and communicate at, and that's essentially what the third place is. And again, why is it important? It's because it allows people to have that spot, and this isn't something that I'm just making up. Like people generally required, even if you don't talk to anybody or you don't, it's still a different place. So when I talk about community, I'm not saying just holding hands, kumbaya, but if you go to the gym every day and you don't communicate with anybody at the gym, but that's your place of refuge, that's your place of relaxation, that's where you go to de-stress and everything like that, that's your third place. So we talk about that, right? And so how does social media provide people that third place? Well, that's pretty cut and clear, right? Virtual spaces are becoming a lot more commonplace, like a lot more. Back what 10 years ago, people looked at Zoom as if it was a foreign subject. Facebook was going strong, but even then, Facebook was a lot different. Twitter was a lot different. Instagram was a lot different. 20 years ago, barely any of this stuff even existed. So you have to kind of look at it from that concept of just how the virtual world expanded and became so regularized in our culture, especially with COVID, that now it's just everywhere. And, again, how does social media provide people that third place? Well, some people don't have a third place. And I know I said we all look for one, and that's why they use it, right? If you don't have a place that you feel like you can go for that place of relaxation or community, friendship, fellowship, anything, affection, anything, like if you don't have that place that you feel like you can be yourself at, or whatever you want yourself to be at, I should say, then that becomes where I believe social media can become more of a crutch than help, because a lot of people rely on that when they feel like they don't have anywhere else. And then one thing for me specifically. And I mean, I think this is kind of, and you all let me know, if I'm, well, I mean, guess how far off I am on it. Social media, at least when we started using, or at least when I started using it, seemed to be primarily for entertainment and communication, connection kind of thing. And not professional connections or business connections, just social connections, entertainment and social connections. And so I think when social media transformed into a source of all kind of aspects of life, because people use it as their primary sole source for news, for sports, for entertainment, for culture, for politics, for education, for information in general. And I think when social media really blew up to that point of where it became a world tool for people, like a primary world tool for people and no longer something for fun, that's where you kind of got that over dependence on it and living on it. And so you might hear me ask this and say, or talk about this, sorry, and be like, well, why does that matter? Right? I mean, and like, I think why it matters, like, we're seeing the impacts on society, which is why I chose to talk about it. Because, I mean, first, it has a negative impact on our social skills. We see that every day. And people are awkward to afraid. People are often very awkward or afraid to, or looking to not participate in any sort of face to face human interaction. And while I understand that to a degree, and I can even sympathize with that to a degree, because I believe it's something, I mean, that we all kind of can say that we've come across. It's not, I mean, as human beings, we have, like, we're social creatures, and the world will always be in a physical space no matter how much we try to make it virtual. And so, therefore, we have to be willing to communicate with each other. I mean, I think, again, we've tried our hardest to, especially in the current year, try to make the world where you can stay in your bubble and you don't ever have to come outside of that bubble. But we see so many people now that suffer from crippling anxiety over what would be described as issues that 10 years ago would seem commonplace. Is that, I mean, like, that seems to be a bad thing more than a good one, right? So maybe trying to keep people in their bubbles isn't the best thing for us. And I mean, to that point, we all know that social media can be overly toxic and harmful, mainly because people on social media love being toxic and harmful. It's a lot more fun, apparently, to be mean than it is to be nice. And so, being in an environment that consistently exposes you to that sort of negativity can be damaging or harmful to your behavior. It can be damaging or harmful to your mentality. Your view of yourself, your view of the world. All of that can go down because of that. And, we see a lot of people, especially a lot of I don't want to call your crazies or anything like that, but we see a lot of people with a lot of more extreme ideas, violent ideas, ideas that really go against not societal norms, but societal safety or societal rules. And oftentimes we see a lot of those people are isolated and they're very heavily engaged in, online communities, very small online communities. And I just think that we have to be aware of just how, again, being consistently exposed to that negativity can really impact your social skills. If you are online and you see a reel or something every day telling you, hey, you need to talk to women like they ain't shit in order for them to like you, then that can, and you start taking in that information, that's negative on you. And then to the point that I was just talking about, more people are choosing to not engage in the real world and openly saying that like it's a good thing. Like, oh yeah, like the virtual world is so much better, but like it's still not real. Like if your house is on fire, you can't get on Facebook and live. If you're hungry, you can't get Instagram. Doesn't matter to you because you're still hungry. You can't just post I'm hungry and somebody like, oh, that's cool, I'll feed you, and through a post, so that's just something that you kind of have to be aware of in that space, that you can't live 100% virtually. And I think a lot of people like to act like that's something that can be done when it can't, or something that may be done one day when, I mean, this isn't the movie Transcendence. It really can't. And so, you know, the other concern, or why, not concern, but why this matters to me, is that vulnerable people can be vulnerable. And oftentimes, those that have an over reliance to living on these social sites are vulnerable to manipulation. They're easily influenced. They're bored. And when I say vulnerable, I'm not just saying, like, people often think about it from a concept of, oh, they're uneducated, or they're like easily manipulated, means that they're soft-willed. No, sometimes it can just be boredom. Some people do stupid things because they had nothing better to do. The devil works through idle hands, So you have to kind of be. You have to kind of watch out for that, because that's, to me, that's why, one of the reasons why this matters, is that vulnerable people can just be easily manipulated by stuff that they see online, misinformation that they see online, um, manipulated by people that they feel like are cool or that they want to emulate, and they have no idea, like, the real lives the people are living. But because they're so ingrained in this social media thing, again, the concept of real world and just those applications don't come to them, so everything gets tuned into just that one media narrative, or that one media focus, which is social media. And so, again, one thing that I think is important is to try to put examples to it, right? Like, we again talked about people lacking interpersonal skills and preferring communication not to be face to face. We and we see this. I think about food a lot when I think about this, right? We When I was a kid, and a lot of people probably listen to this were younger, you remember the days where ordering food had to be face to face, or physical, or some sort of verbal contact. Whether you was ordering a pizza through by calling the pizza place, or you had to go up and place a order, a pickup order, and come back later to pick it up, or anything like that. Compared to now, again, those sort of interactions give people anxiety, and they're not trying to do that. And apps and online has created that ability to minimize that online presence. I mean, we talk about dating, and just social interaction between people is the same between texting and DMs. People really don't know how to talk to each other. You're not gonna hear me. I'm trying not to sound like a boomer and key in on, like, the younger generation and be like, oh, Generation Z does this and Generation Z does that, because I believe we all do it. But I think this is something that impacts them the most, in terms of not having the social skills to talk to people in different environments, or be able to really manage their anxiety or their emotions in a way that they are still able to communicate with people effectively. And I think, again, that's because there is an alternative that people are so heavy to use. Somebody will walk. I mean, we live in a world now, and I can attest to this by people I know that lived in my own neighborhood. Somebody can walk right past you and not say a word to you, but then send you a message on Facebook 5 minutes later. So, you know, though, I mean, you just have to be aware of that. And I think if you're somebody that is struggling with, you know, that anxiety, because I struggle with it, I don't like talking to people a lot of times, then you have to kind of find ways to work around it. And I mean, it can be just, sometimes it is just gritting your teeth and being like, I got to get through it. Sometimes it's finding ways, to find commonalities between others, um, and just making conversations easy. And just to bring it back to the people who live on social media, because I can talk about that. Obviously, that's the point of this episode all day, right? So let me kind of go by generation real quick. Older people, well, their thing is Facebook, right? Like all day. I see. I mean, there's people are, when I say our age, again, I'm not talking like everybody on here is my demographic. If there might be people that are millennial age or Gen Z age that are on Facebook all day, but primarily, and the reason I think Facebook is really setting gold at this point is because old people have found it very easy to use, very easy to connect with people that they may not be able to connect with otherwise. It has a lot of great uses to it. Like I'm not doubting it or trying to down it, but you do see people that are on Facebook all day, every day. Sometimes when I'm talking to my mom and she's telling me stuff that she's seen on Facebook, and I'm like, Mama, you got to get off of that because that's not even real. Like you're just looking at like something that a fake, fake website or something that bots sent or something like that. And but you think about it, some of these people, especially some of these elders, they're retired, kids are out the house, have a lot of free time on their hands. Some of them might not be as mobile as they used to be, and so you have again a lot of free time on your hands, a computer with the whole world of people talking right in front of you. And I mean, when I was a kid, my grandma would call people every day. Like she would be on the phone for hours every day. Yeah, as an older lady, so it's not like it's come in a different form. But I think it's one thing to talk to one person, have that direct communication compared to just talking to the world or just talking online. Because again, that go back to that vulnerable board sitting around. I'm vulnerable to misinformation. I'm vulnerable to all these different things that lead me down these paths of weirdness, because I'm in this social media space where if I was outside of the world, I mean, outside of that, I wouldn't be. But that also goes back to some people don't have that third place. And some elderly people don't have that third place, don't have that place of community or community, friendship or fellowship where it would take some of that user or ownership or usership from social media away from it. So you also have to be aware of that as well in terms of thinking, well, why are they? Now, coming down to my generation, the millennials, uh, I think, what is it, Gen X, the one right above millennials. I think they're kind of in this too, but it's mostly us. Our thing is stories, Instagram. I never really used Snapchat like that, but Snapchat was big for us. And in terms of that, posting stories, but we don't post as much because we post everything to our stories. At least I'm not talking for everybody, but I think that's one big thing. When I talk about people living on social media, like, and it's different from, I post, things a day. I post a lot of jokes and stuff on social media, a lot of jokes on my story, a lot of ignorance on my story. So I can understand that. But if you're posting like 20 stories a day, 15, 20 stories a day, if not even, let me not even put a number on it. If you're posting every single thing that you're doing to your story, it almost becomes like a thing. If you think about it, like the concept of, pics or it didn't happen, or stuff is post or it didn't happen, and that's just wild. Like the concept that I have to put this online for people to see it, to validate that I've done it. And I think that's just, again, it's another concept of trying to deconnect yourself from from the social media world and thinking that it has more value in validifying your life than it does, because it doesn't. And the younger generation, the one thing that I've seen with them, the Gen Zs and younger at that, I guess, Gen A's, I suppose, too, with the young kids, for them, to me, one thing that is the Twitch stream fascination. It's impacted my generation too. Like it's really caught us. But it's such a odd concept to me because I had a Twitch account years ago. I mean, I still do. And, I've watched people play on Twitch, usually like good, almost pro gamers. I watch them play just to be like, oh, yo, they doing stuff I could never do. You know what I'm saying? Because video games do require skill. But it's gone to the point now where you see in the world of like the Kais and Nats and like 1,000 people trying to be like him, to where streaming is just people virtually hanging out and just doing stuff on the stream and people are watching and everybody's trying to be a streamer. And what do you do on your stream? I don't know. You sit in your chair, you talk, and you look to see who's in the room with you, and you all have this conversation about whatever you're conversing about. And it's a very, I'm not trying to say that it's bad, but it is very odd. I mean, and it's very odd to use it in spades like people do, to really be as reliant on it as people do. But also, I understand you can get subscribers, you can get money off of it. So I don't doubt why those that use it heavily do, especially if you're monetizing from it. But at the same time, it is the concept of just another form of social media you're spending all your time on, and that's your reality. You some people feel like, oh yeah, I'm hanging out with my friends, and while you're sitting in this online group, and you could be, but at the same time, don't do that to the detriment of missing out on people around you in the real world or opportunities around you in the real world. And again, I just want to reiterate, I'm not saying any of this stuff in moderation is bad, but in to use it to exhaustion or to overuse it is detrimental to everyone. And I mean, I think we've seen a glimpse of where possibly this could all go, right? The metaverse, I think, is a big thing. VR, the metaverse, I think is big. Because essentially, to me, it's the roadmap. It might not be the final product of what we see, but it's definitely the roadmap to where this whole virtual world is going. To where people are really going to be able to put on a headset and just be there all day. And it goes back to my point of, sure, but when you are physically hungry, being in meta doesn't help you. If you're physically cold, being in meta doesn't help you. If you're physically sick, being in meta doesn't help you. You might be able to meet somebody and might be able to gain some sort of intimacy within that, but if you want to be physically intimate with them, it doesn't help you. So I think with that, we have to again just realize and scale back what this thing can actually do for us, and not give it a sense of reliance that you can't come back from, or a sense of reliance that your whole life is on. It's like a drug and just becoming addicted to it. And one thing I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to give this its own kind of little section, so I wanted to go through that part first, is the I get the artist formerly known as Twitter. It's the wild world of Twitter. This to me is one of the it is one of the most insanely ingenious things I've ever seen. You have a platform where anybody with little to any regulation at any time can say anything about anything. And not only do you have this platform that has such these wide, unregulated bases, but it's also been used or have been accepted as a validified source of information for everything, for politics, for sports, for news of all senses, for culture, for spread, for stories, for everything that we talk about. And there is a area of Twitter for all parts of culture. You can be on Twitter and come across a thread or people talking about things from modern art to architecture to historical facts to sex to pornography to drugs to violence to religion. I mean, and within that, every area, all the time, 24/7. On top of that, you have just people just talking just to talk. And so you have it's this wide world of just craziness everywhere, and you're just siphoning through information, and it's become so addictive to people. And when it became validified as a source of information, where we have governments and people of interest and um, official organizations and things that people rely on that communicate through. I mean, they communicate through all of them, but in Twitter and specifically, they're communicating through this. And people are getting canceled and getting criticized for things they say on Twitter. Like it has implications on your professional life, on your real world life outside of it. When it got to that area, it's a beast that really, I don't know how it can be contained unless somebody was to take control of it and turn it into something that was so toxic that he made even the most toxic people on the internet want to quit it, which might be what Elon Musk is trying to do. Who knows? But one of the things I wanted to talk about with Twitter was Black Twitter, right? I mean, I think this was a great time for Twitter. I think it was one of the examples of why it blew up the way it did, where you saw people all across the country, across the globe, come together in this, again, sense of community over common topics, jokes, entertainment. And you saw, again, that initial reliance, and where I kind of think it's, I don't want to say the downfall of Twitter started, but as ironic as me talking about Black Twitter being a good thing, I think that also was kind of like the beginning of the slope for the hill of it going down. Because, in my opinion, Twitter has been trying to recreate that feeling or that rush that Black Twitter had, and it's just not there. Mainly because I think it's so many different people, and it's so much disruption. Like, there's so many people on it that want to be disruptive that it can't. There is no happy community in Twitter. It's just a community of everything, you know. And so we've seen the rise of things like the hate groups and the incel groups on Twitter, which again goes back to the concept that all communications are on it, all areas of thought are on it, and they're allowed to exist and thrive, for better or for worse. And so you have people that may have dangerous or irresponsible type of ideals, thoughts, opinions, jokes, whatever, and where they would have to have looked harder to find those people, or probably not be able to find those people because most people would have been turned off to that. It's easier for them to find online, and it's easier for it to exist. And so, and because you're living on it, and because if you're isolated and you feel like, oh, these are the people I like. These are the, somebody understands me. I talk about incels a lot because I think that's the easiest example to use. And incel is the group of guys that claim that they're involuntarily celibate, because women who, I don't want to say women who owe them sex, but women who they believe they deserve sex from are not giving it to them, or they believe that women should be sleeping with them when they're not, or should be romantically interested in them when they're not. And I think about that. I think about this group a lot because, again, it's the easiest to identify examples off of. You hear a guy say something not negative about women, but something very derogatory, and where he can say that and then immediately have comments from other guys agreeing, hyping him up, gassing him up over it, and he's already found that community. And that emboldens them to be back, to communicate with them more. They're on together more, and it just creates a sensitive. It creates these dangerous bubbles that need to be checked, and would be easy to check again if people was on social media more. And to that point, with Twitter again, with what I believe it kind of came to the death of it, and which another reason why I don't understand why people spend so much time still on it, is that between the bots and the fake accounts, the intrusion and the consistent intrusion that advertising has become, the concept and the existence of trolls just to be trolls. A lot of people don't even believe in what they say. They just say negative things just to get a rise out of people. The rise of fake news and disinformation or misinformation. It's hard to even tell. I mean, and just the concept of people just saying, whatever just whatever. It's really hard to tell what's even real anymore. What's tangible information anymore? What are you on this website for? What does it bring you? Uh, and I mean, I challenge because I think a lot of people, and the reason I brought that up was I think a lot of people are still heavily on social media apps because they're used to it. And I would just challenge you to ask yourself a few questions by the end of this. But one is, what's real on this? When you see somebody saying something negative about a particular group of people, is that I mean, like, and it's hard to tell. Like, is that a real comment? Is it really what somebody thinks? Does it really matter if they think that? And I think when you take that power that people have from saying stuff that the social media gives them away, it makes it all silly, which makes it easier just to kind of disconnect from it all. I think a lot of times we get so riled up about what's going on and what people are saying on these sites that we forget that it is literally virtual things going into a virtual space that has no real place, you know? And one thing that I want to talk about in terms of this, and I'm very guilty of this, is group chats and group FaceTime, because that's not social media, but it's like social media adjacent. Because I do think it still has its place. Like, everybody has, group chats, group FaceTime, they're great. Great to keep people together, great to keep people communicating. I have no issue with them. None of them should be consistently 24/7, requiring your time. I think that's where it gets problematic, because it's the same problem, right? Like, you're not engaging in the real world around you because you're in your phone. I'm talking to the group chat or I'm on FaceTime, so I'm not giving, the world my full attention. And it's good to do it, but you have to do that in moderation, because when not, I mean, I know for myself, I would at work a lot, especially when I would be bored, especially my past jobs. I was on FaceTime with my friends. Not a problem. Now, at times I would be sitting in conversation with people with my headphone in my ear talking, and listening to them and not listening to the people I'm talking to. That you can't do. And I've had to check myself on that. You have to still be part of the real world, regardless of how, and you have to fight that temptation at times, because it's easy to sit on that all day and then look up and be like, well, damn, and so I think you just have to be aware of that. And just lastly with that, it's just widespread, right? Everything has a chat function, account profile, add friends through. So it's easy, or it's addictive to every time that you start a new app or every time you get on the app, and you have to technically be a social media app anymore. Every time that you come across any sort of application that has some sort of community or chat functions with it and adding friends with it and stuff like that. And you just have to kind of, again, pause yourself on it. Because a lot of times I think to myself, because I have to download a lot of apps, especially, I have LLC, I have a sole proprietorship business as well. I work, on top of that. I have a lot of things I have to, to do. A lot of apps I have to download for it. I'm the president for my fraternity. Like, a lot of things I have to kind of communicate with and use. And sometimes I'm looking at some of these apps and stuff, and I'm just like, I'll use it for the baseline of it, but I'm not about to put more into this. I'm not about to create another account and try to add friends and talk to you on this, whether for any other reason that it is. And maybe that's me being an old soul to a degree, but I think it is something just to be concerned about. And so, leading into that, my concerns, right? And I think it's important to talk about. We talked about, I guess, examples, and we talked about why it matters that people are overly relying on social media. But so, what concerns come from it? Well, one we talked about to a degree, it's dangerous to consistently use social media as an escape for real life. Like, I get that some people feel more in control over their online life than their physical one, and that is a completely rational reason to use social media as that escape. But and I don't want to sound insensitive in saying this because nobody knows everybody's situation. But in order to, if the issue is that you are unhappy or you don't have control over your physical space, the only way that will change is by somehow addressing and rectifying that issue. But using social media as an escape to it does not change that because it does not immediately impact that. If you can use social media as a way to change your physical space, your physical situation, and some people do that. We've seen a lot of people get rich off of this sort of stuff. And if you can use it to do that, then great. But it's the same. I think of the concepts that with the streamers and the social media influencers and everything like that, I think of that the same thing as kids wanting to be athletes and actors and stuff. Like, yeah, it's nice, but the odds are very low because everybody can't be one. Everybody can't be a social media influencer. So you have to kind of think about that and limit kind of how much you put into it. And so it's very easy to create that false or that alternative reality online. It's easy to create the person that you want to be, or create somebody that nobody would think you would be, or somebody that you feel like somebody wants you to be, or whatever it is. And again, to use that as an escape is cool, but it doesn't help you be that person. If you want to be somebody different, then you have to put in that work to be somebody different. You can't, like, if social media is just the escape to say, oh, in this realm, I'm someone different. In this life, I'm somebody different. It doesn't change. It actually makes it harder for you because you keep having to go through that disconnect or that transition every time. Every day you wake up and be like, well, this is my situation. Now let me go to this other situation, So if that was a negative to you before, not changing it and just having this other platform that you have to keep drawing yourself away from will eventually tire you out just the same, if not more. And so the other concern with the rise of social media, and we came back to this, or the over reliance of social media, I should say, and we talked about this a little bit, is that everyone wants to be a hater or a troll. Like, it's popular. It's celebrated and it's popular in our society. The shade room doesn't post when people make positive comments. It only posts when people say something negative and somebody claps back to it. Like, we in our society love negativity, and we love those sort of spats, and because we think they're funny and they're cool, and they make sure that you're witty and everything like that. And we get why also that this exists. Obviously, social media provides anonymity. Even if you use your name and your picture, most of the time you're arguing with somebody and you don't know where that person is. They don't know where you are. A lot of times it just ends right there. We see where social media or altercations online come into that physical realm, but that's more often not the case. And so people are often emboldened to say things online, the internet gangsters, if you will, that they would not say, or not just the internet gangsters, but that they would not say otherwise. And I think about, like, a lot of times when you see people make in like almost what do they say, like the third comment, by the third comment on every video is something negative. That's usually an example of it. Back to the rise in dangerous ideologies and hate groups. I mean, I'm gonna keep talking about this because I really think that's one of the biggest issues with the over reliance on social media. Is that it is giving people the ability to have dark thoughts, publicize dark thoughts that oftentimes they wouldn't have or not have, they wouldn't publicize otherwise. But it's giving them a platform to publicize dark thoughts that a lot of times they do out of, again, wanting to be a troll, being bored, or just wanting to entertain themselves, and or just piss somebody off, quite frankly. Or and it gives rise to thinking that, oh, this is cool. People, people didn't pay me any attention until I started calling women bitches every day. Like, and so you don't want to, you want to try to stay away from that, but everyone wants to be one. Everybody wants to talk shit to each other. And I think that's something that social media has shown about society that is very negative. And instead of us taking that as a heed of example to why we should limit it or curtail it, or at least try to be nicer to each other, we've leaned into it more. And again, back to, it's easy to isolate yourself to only support those or only communicate with those that support your beliefs. And this is really scary, quite frankly. The algorithm stuff is scary about that. I remember back in the early part of COVID, the job I was working with, I was unhappy with. And I was in a very bad space, right? And like, it, the things that your algorithm will try to sense on based on your demographic information, what it reads off of your searches, your text messages, all that sort of stuff. Because I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but I do believe everything on your phone is going into like the ads and the algorithms and all that. And so like, you would see like, it will feed you if you saw one video that was talking about, oh, men are not valued in society, and then the next video, women are so dumb because they don't value men in society, and then the next video, these are the problem with women today, and then the next, like, if you, and it keeps feeding you and it keeps feeding you it. And if you're somebody to say, oh, I agree with this, and then, oh, I agree with that, and you might not even, it's just like I keep pounding you in the head with it, because it might not even be that you agree with everything that was said, but because it was presented to you, and it was presented to you in such a repetitious fashion, it became that. And if that's all, and you can curtail your algorithm to that's all that you want to see. So if all I wanted to see was content about misogyny, or content about racism, or content or violent stuff, if all I want to see was people getting shot and killed or something like that, I can curtail my algorithm to show me that. If all I wanted to see was people making, crazy dark jokes with each other, I can curtail my algorithm to show me that. And I think that's something that we have to be aware of, because it can really put people in a dark headspace, or it can really put people in a negative or a dangerous headspace, because literally all that's on their mind, all that they see 24/7, reel after reel after reel after reel after reel, or whatever you want to call it, is that. Or the only people that you talk to online are this group of people that have the same closed-minded beliefs that you do. And it's so weird, because while these social media platforms were originally built to bring people together and to bring people into areas and spaces where different ideas, different cultures, different ways of life existed, and to increase not diversity, but just increase diverse thought, it is just as easy to isolate yourself and to really be like, I don't like these people, screw them, I want nothing to hear about that, and I want to talk to and to hear from only people that think what I think and think I'm right. And it just becomes a very dangerous place, that I think we all need to kind of come out of, which is this concept of using social media to as a reliance on our justification for facts, our justification for our ideologies and everything like that, because none of this stuff can really be validified. A lot of facts that people talk about on social media are fake. People swear that TikTok is a great source of information, but TikTok is somebody trying to cram information into you in a few seconds to a minute to a couple minutes that if you went and looked it up, what they're saying is not accurate either. And quite frankly, if you believe that people in any other aspect or channel of media would be lying to you about things, I don't understand why you would think that some random person on the internet on TikTok or Twitter wouldn't be lying to you too. Just because you believe they're a person like you doesn't mean that they will lie to you like anybody else. It actually probably makes it more likely that they would. Like I think we have to bring a certain need for validating figures back, but that's a different topic for a different day. And it's just my concern. One concern I have is just what does the future look like, right? So we come to it now, and we hear old people say it all the time. Is everyone just going to be communicating through a screen? Is that where we look 20 years from now? I mean, we're close now, but is that where we look 20 years from now? Um, I think one thing that I think should be asked is, will AI become a forced solution for loneliness? And I mean, you might hear me and think I'm being funny about this, but I had a cousin that got catfished, right? And this ain't AI, but still, like, I'm coming back to it. A cousin that got catfished, and at a certain point, he knew he was catfished. I mean, he knew that the person wasn't real. I mean, they kept asking for money he didn't have, but because he didn't have a girlfriend or any romantic prospects, he chose to continue to communicate with that account because he didn't have anyone else to talk to in that regard. And even if this person wasn't serious, they was at least giving him a modicum of or a small amount of, whether it be fake or real, fake affection that was more than what he was getting from anything else. So when I say that, I use that same thing to think about, with AI, we see with Cortana and Siri and Alexa and how advanced these things have become. We've seen with Chat GPT and how advanced it is as a conversational feature. Will will it just become to where they're just gonna put out a piece of AI and be like, it's a conversational piece. Talk to it. Have fun with it. And will that be people's solution for loneliness? Will that be a lot of people's friend? I mean, and you might look at me and be like, well, that's wild, but I mean, it seems like that could be a rational thing of where this world could go to. So, in conclusion, I think we talked about a lot, and y'all have listened to me rant for this for a minute. So, just wanted to say that, social media can be both a solution and a cause of isolation. I think we've talked about that. It can be a way to connect people that would otherwise not have that ability, a way to connect people that otherwise would not have had those things to say. I mean, that would not otherwise been heard. It give people a platform and the ability to connect with family, friends, others, share ideas, like all those good things that we hear all the time, right? But at the same time, it can also be something that can distract us. It can make us extremely anxious, isolated. It can really it put us in a closed-minded group or a closed-minded frame of thought, and we just have to be aware of that. There's an importance of being present in the real world. There's an importance of being present in the real world, not just because, oh, online is fake, but because like it's where you really have to live, and you don't And you don't want to miss out. You only get one life, and you don't want to miss out on opportunities or anything because you were posting online all day. You don't want to miss out on people or on what things it could come to in life. And when I say that, it's more not even that you don't want to miss out. You don't. My biggest fear is that you'll have people who are social media famous. I mean, 'cause we see it all the time. People that are social media famous or very social media successful, who in real life have very little success or anything to show for it. And I think that's my biggest problem. If I could sum that up into like a word, is just having is that it's an importance of being present in the real world, because that's where having something to show for yourself matters. You see a lot of people that have a lot to show for on social media that they are not really converting that into real life success. And so because of that, or real life anything, because of that, it's you can't undermine that importance of the real world. And then lastly, just social media isn't going anywhere. It's been around for 20 plus years now, and it's going to be around for the rest of the time, regardless of TikTok ban, regardless of people not wanting to talk about, I mean, not wanting it or wanting to put an age limit on it and blah, blah, blah. It's not going anywhere. And so the question that I would leave with you all, a few questions, is first, where's the balance in our reliance on it? Or where's the balance in your reliance on it? Where is that line for you between entertainment and a life necessity? If you feel like that your use falls closer to that line, that dividing line, or on that line of life necessity, I would encourage you to reassess, your current social media activity. And the last question is, and I think this is really the most important, is it still for fun? If it's not for fun, if it's for life, I mean, if it's literally for other things than fun, I don't think social media is for you anymore. The moment Twitter stopped being fun for me, I got off. The moment my friends weren't on it as much anymore, and it was a bunch of people I didn't know talking about all these different subjects, and they made it so serious and so um, argumentative and debating, and everybody wanted to debate think pieces. I got off. And it's just not fun to me. But that's the questions I would leave y'all with. Again, thank y'all for y'all time. I appreciate you tuning in for this first episode of the Bottom Line Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Davis. Love to y'all. Peace out.